All right, welcome back, my friends, to the Hippie Moms podcast. Today we have Kristen Jackson Banister with us. I'm so happy you're here, Kristen. Thanks for joining us.
Thanks for having me, Becky. I'm really happy to be here.
I am so happy you're here. We are going to talk about a lot of things, but I would love for you to share how you got into the work that you do today.
Yeah, great. I'd be happy to share it. So I studied traditional counseling in my graduate degree. And I started in the field and I really felt like something was missing. And I had a lot of history in doing wilderness therapy work or wilderness work. And so one thing I did was I went and studied wilderness rites of passage with a wonderful organization called the School of Lost Borders. I was training to be a wilderness guide, a wilderness rites of passage guide. And in the training, we spent a month on the land in ceremony, doing different ceremonial engagements with the land. It was really an important time in my life and a special time. And one of the messages I got from that time, loud and clear, was that it was my purpose in this world to use the body to connect us, to connect the human race, to connect people I come in contact with to the earth herself. As the body as earth was my through line in this work. And then I dove into studying different modalities to do that. I studied kind of movement therapy called open floor therapy in motion. And I also studied Peter Levine's work, somatic experiencing, and I've added little bits and pieces from different people along the way and kind of mixes through me and becomes what it is in my practice.
I love that. Oh my gosh, I want to do that. I want to go spend a month in the wilderness doing ceremonies. That sounds like heaven.
Yeah, it's amazing. I highly recommend it. Yeah.
So moving into this, like getting back to our bodies, like, can you speak around that? Like, why do we need to do that? And what is that? How can that actually help us?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, what I can say about it is that we live in a world and we have an idea about ourselves that is that the main mind and the body are separate, and we have given so much priority to cognition and thinking. And not that there's anything wrong with those, it's just that we have celebrated what we call the logical mind. And it turns out that actually there is no separation between mind and body, that it's one unit, one experience. And there's so much happening in the body that provides us with information and helps us to experience things. You might have heard it said that you can learn something, but you don't know it until you feel it, until you have the felt experience of it. And that's really the idea of working with the body, is giving ourselves the felt experience of whatever it is we're trying to understand or heal from. And so the body also gives us incredible resource. There's the felt sense of the body, like I have an ache in my arm or I have an expansion in my chest. And there's also the other information that comes through different channels of experiencing, like the senses, what I smell and taste and see. The experience of emotion is actually generated from the body. The experience of imagination, a lot of people say, it is a cognitive experience, but we can also find it relating to the physical body. So it's just a wealth of us that's available to us that most of us are not tapped into.
And so why is that? Why aren't we tapped in to the body? And you said it a little earlier, because we've given so much attention to the mind and the analytical mind, the logical mind, and the thinking. But we're not really landed in our bodies.
Yeah, there's a couple different ways I could go with answering this. One is that we store a lot of trauma or hard things in our bodies, so it can be frightening to come in and feel what's happening here, especially without support or education. We feel pain in our bodies, we feel grief in our bodies, we feel so much in our bodies. So to tap into it can feel frightening at first. And of course, what we're missing there is that if we don't feel the hard things in the body, we also don't get to feel the expansive things, the joy, the gratitude, the love that's available to us as well. So it is nice to be able to have somebody to support you while you're exploring it for the first time, or just exploring it in general.
I love that. So really we have these experiences, these traumas in our lives, right? And a lot of times we don't feel safe, right? We're not safe necessarily in that trauma. And so we can't really process that experience. Is that correct? Is that what's going on there?
Yeah, well, that's such a great question.
Okay.
I think that our what, to be able to process the experiences that get lodged in our body, we actually have to go to the experience of the body feeling okay or safe or good or something other than that experience in order for us to be able to approach the places that feel hard and difficult. And so the body works, this is at the base of Peter Levine's work. The body heals. And it also comes from a lot of indigenous cultures. The body heals through the experience of something that feels like a resource and something that feels like a stuck place or a hard place or a trauma, right? And so we have this natural capacity for healing if we pendulate between, if we can move our attention between the two, and then a third thing arises, which isn't the resource and it isn't the trauma. It's something called that I would call integration or healing itself, or the experience of flow or normalness. Sometimes is just what it feels like. And
it's so interesting because we kind of get stuck in these patterns that we're not even aware.
Yeah.
That's one thing I've realized through my healing is when you start to do the healing, you're like, wow, I'm such a different human than what I always thought I was, because I wasn't able to really move through these big emotions, feeling safe. But once we feel safe and we can move through because it's essentially energy.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah, it is energy. This is energy work. Yeah. I love hearing you say that. It's like you discovered, I'm different than I thought I was. There was the places where maybe I was holding on to something, or you might have even had an identity around something, and then you move through it and you just keep discovering your bigness, your vastness. Yeah.
That is so beautiful. So, okay, now lead us into like the healing through movement. And because that's something which is so great. You all have to stay tuned and listen to the full podcast, because you're going to hear what we have for you today. But I would love to talk about that. How do you help people heal through movement? Tell me about that.
I'd be happy to talk about it. Yeah. So, here's the thing about the human experience. Here's the thing about life itself, is there really is no stillness. We can get our bodies to be as still as possible, and we're still going to have a heartbeat, and we're still going to have breath. Life is always moving. Life is always changing. Our emotions are always changing. Our sensations are always changing. Our thoughts are constantly moving through us. And so the practice of movement, whether it's in the work I do in my therapy office, or, I also do work on dance floors where I invite people to dance and pay attention. And so it really is the practice of witnessing the movement, of witnessing what is true, that life is always moving, that we are constantly changing and moving. And then also referencing that within us, which remains the same. Learning to reference that, to feel it. Yeah.
That's beautiful. So how do you help people tap in to the energy of what and who we truly are.
Mm. Mhm. Yeah, that's a wonderful question. So I have different meditations that I use.
Mhm.
I do use experiences of gratitude and what the philosophers call transcendent emotions. So gratitude or awe or love with a capital L, or selfishness, or like true forgiveness, when you really see the higher being in the other human being.
Mhm.
So I think that it's such a great question, because I think it's happening more and more in the therapy office, that therapists are recognizing we need to include this spiritual self, the whole holotropic self, right, in the experience. And the beauty of it is that we can experience the holotropic self regardless of how much awareness or work we have done around the protective self, right?
Yes, yes. I love that. And I really want to explore, because recently, okay, someone says like, be grateful, right? Like just be grateful. But there's something so magical about gratitude, but I think it's become so almost, I don't want to say trendy, but it's like the meaning has really lost itself. And what I've recently discovered is like the feeling of gratitude, like that like deep reverence for all of the things that are so easy to take for granted in our life, right? It's so easy to focus what's not working, and where our focus goes grows. So I'm tired of like growing stuff I don't really like. So I'm going to start focusing on things that I really do love. And it's been absolutely life-changing. And so can you like talk around that a little bit? Like, because you have a beautiful article about gratitude, which I love you bring in the neuroscience and, for people that need the analytical mind to get on board. So I'll make sure that we have that in the show notes, my friends, but like, tell us about that, and how can we as listeners begin to truly experience gratitude in a new way and something different. Does that make sense?
Absolutely. Yeah. So well said. I appreciate what you said, the felt sense of gratitude, and how different that can be than this sort of idea that you should feel it, right?
Yeah.
So let me start by, although it's so hard to define, but what is gratitude? At its core, at its felt sense experience, like you're talking about, it is really being present to the mysterious miracle of this existence, right? It's like, and when that happens, we don't have to try to feel gratitude. We just are right? We are gratitude, you could say, in those moments, right?
Mm.
And the other thing I would say is, it's okay not to feel grateful about everything. Like, there's some things in this life that are so hard and so difficult, and we don't just have to feel grateful all the time. There are all kinds of other emotions that arise in us. And so permission to not be grateful all the time.
Yes. Yeah. Because if you feel like you have to do anything, you don't want to do it.
Yeah. Right. Yeah, exactly.
But it's really like, for me, it's almost like I want to create a magical life. Like I really do. I'm at a point in my life. I'm like, I've had the contrast, Kristen. I've lived in the self-doubt and the lower energetic fields of emotions, which are all beautiful. They provide the contrast, right, for us when we do feel happy or joyous or grateful. And so like, it's being intentional about it, right? And saying, you know what, I'm not feeling grateful. And there's so much right now I can source and just look at, wow, my kids are healthy. Yeah. Like I have a roof over my head, like the kind of the things that it's like, just be grateful for your food. But I'm like, no, I really am so grateful for my food. Does that make sense?
Yes. Yeah, I love it. I think again, I'll reference what you said earlier, which is like this felt sense of it, right? We can go up into the cognitive mind and think, we can repeat 100 times, I'm grateful for my food, right? But when we really stop and let ourselves engage the body and notice how that feels and notice where we feel it and give it
Mm.
attention. When we give, like you said, when we give something attention, it grows. And then we're building that embodied relationship to the
Mm.
higher self, or right, or the preconditioned self, maybe I would say, right? Like,
Yes.
right.
So it is, finding, like, being intentional and willing to cultivate a deep, because the beautiful thing is we can generate anything at any time.
Mhm.
And it's not about being fake, like you're sad or you're depressed, you're like, okay, just be joyous. No, kind of like the emotional scale. Like maybe we can find a little peace, or, moving ourselves up to a higher vibration.
Yeah. Yeah. And gratitude does, like you're saying, it's such a powerful thing to use to generate and to really generate what you want or what life wants you to have, right? There's
Yeah.
maybe a distinction between those two things. Because, what we find over and over again when we are able to be in a space of having contact with our higher selves, or the part of us that can be present and really enjoy life, is that life wants us to be well and happy and connected, and right. And
That's our
so
natural state.
mhm. And I think the generative quality of gratitude is when we recognize that what we're offering gratitude is the source from which it came, right?
Mm.
So to just recognize, I don't know why or how, or even if I even deserve this, but to say thank you
Mhm.
to that from which it came, and the mysterious source from which it came. And, just like human beings, energies like to be thanked. They like to be
Yes.
seen and appreciated.
Yes.
Yeah.
So there's a part on your, okay, I'm going to bring you around to it. So I'm hoping you can talk about, but there's a part that you wrote about gratitude that is the most powerful expression of gratitude. Do you know what I'm talking about?
Yes, I do indeed.
Okay.
This actually surprised me, and I love it
Yes,
because
I
it's
love
in
this.
so many pieces, right? So for what scientific research has told us is that the most powerful experience that we can have of gratitude is to receive somebody else's gratitude. And
Mm.
so that arms us with the knowledge that, one, when we offer our gratitude to other people, we have a very powerful tool, right? So we're helping, if they really receive our gratitude, we're helping them do all kinds of things, like reduce anxiety, increase motivation, increase their felt sense of well-being.
Mm.
And also it invites us to live a life where we're generous in many different ways. It doesn't have to be financial. And not, we can't hang on to the hope that they're going to thank me for my generosity, right? But
Right.
if we can really catch those moments where people do thank you for what you've done or what you've provided, then we have a powerful moment for ourselves that we can use. And these are moments that we can revisit. We can use them in meditations. We can, move with them in our body to really notice, how did that feel for me? Where did I feel it in my body? What did it feel like? And if I hang out with it, if I give it my attention, I'm going to increase it. I'm going to make it bigger, and I'm going to get a bigger benefit from it.
Mm.
Yeah.
And I will say, consistently being in gratitude, it really does like bring magic into your life.
Yeah.
And I love that you said that. Okay, so just to clarify, when we give other people gratitude, like tell them how grateful we are for them, right?
Mhm.
What they do that we love, and the things that we appreciate about them. And we can, and like you said, we can do that. We don't have to tell them physically. We can feel the gratitude for them, right? Like you said, in meditation or like a prayer or something, and feel that, and they feel that, because there's no boundaries.
That's beautiful. That's such a lovely thing to say. Yes. Yeah. And if we're holding anything about them, a slight little judgment or whatever,
Yeah.
right, that practice will just melt that right away.
Oh, it's so beautiful. I mean, it is so helpful, especially with the people that you live with all the time and are on your nerves.
What a great idea. Yes.
It really does, and they feel it. They feel that expansiveness.
Yeah. Yeah.
It's really beautiful. Go ahead.
What I was going to say about it is, I also mentioned this in the article, that neuroscience tells us that there are actually two distinct neural pathways, that one will help, they call it prosocial, help us connect to other people, and also gives us an experience of well-being. And the other is protective. And we can feel it when we're in protective in relationship. It's when we have judgments about other people, or, project onto them, or, all the things that we all do, right? And so the more we can practice moving into the prosocial, the better results we're going to have in our practice with gratitude, in the way our felt sense of our own selves and our relationship to our own selves, because ultimately what we give away, we receive, right? Yeah.
Yes, that's so true. And it is because that's like a universal law, right? It's like this infinity sign. What we give, we get back. And then we just continue to like grow that through, and we can create unconsciously or subconsciously, or we can create, right, with an awareness, saying this is now what I want to create in my life, and focus on that. But it is hard. And for people that are, and I say that because when people are dealing with traumas,
Yes,
and things that kind of block that energy flow,
yes.
right? And it's really, I mean, it's not like it's not normal. I mean, we're all dealing with some sort of traumas. We've all been traumatized
Yeah.
in our lives, right? I mean,
true.
that's just the reality. And so the more we can kind of move through and clear that, I don't want to say clear the energy, but move the energy, the more we can we can be present and show up.
Yeah, that's well said. Yeah.
So how do you work with clients? Like, how do you work with clients? Like, what are some different modalities that you bring in? Is it kind of the same thing, or do you work differently with different people?
Yeah. I work differently with different people. It depends on, what's showing up in the office that day. Like the person, what they're bringing, what their relationship is to the work and the body. And, but it can look like, it runs the continuum from looking like asking a person to pay attention to information that's coming through the body. So we'll establish the different channels of experiencing that. I mentioned some of them earlier. Their sensation, sensory information, image, thought, thought as in making meaning of the experience, or any other thoughts that arise, we pay attention to. Energy level. So energy level will shift and change as we go. And sometimes intuition will show itself. Sometimes memory, a different function of cognition, will show itself. And so what we'll do is we'll invite the person to put their mind on their body at times and see what experiences are available to us, because we all have access to some of these channels more than others, just from life. And so I'll work with people to help build relationship to channels that they maybe don't have a lot of access to, but we can totally start with whatever you have access to. Like, I have a wonderful person I'm working with right now that has an amazing imagery. And so we work a lot on the imagery channel, and that's just fine. You can do a lot of work with that. So it ranged, the work itself can look like a person being still and paying attention to the body, or moving and paying attention to how the body feels in the movement itself. Movement in particular, expressive movements, postural movements, changing posture, bilateral stimulation, like can help us actually make connections that we're right on the verge of making.
Wow.
And then crossing the center line is a really powerful thing for us too.
That is so cool. The body is so wise.
It's so wise.
It's so brilliant. And really, it's untapped.
Yeah.
The intelligence that's in it, that's really, it's like kind of the doorway to our freedom is moving back into the body, right? We've been in the spin of the mind, and it's like, no, we already know that's not it. That just causes suffering. Like, come into the body. Right. I love that. So you have a gift for us.
I do. Yes. I recorded a brief guided movement session. It's particularly around stuckness, because that's had my attention lately. So I thought maybe I'll provide it for y'all and see if it's useful for anybody. So it's a brief movement. I would call it a movement meditation or a movement session where we just explore a little technique that I've found to be helpful to stuckness. It can be like I'm stuck between this and that and making a decision, or I'm stuck because I feel like I have to be one way and my authentic self says to be another. We get stuck in so many ways. So that's the gift I'd like to offer.
I feel that. I can't wait to do that because we all go through those moments where we just feel like, ugh, like where do I go from here? And then it can kind of stay. I love that because because then we need something to just kind of push us out, push us over that cliff a little bit.
Yeah. And so often we'll try to use the mind, like to think our way out, which
it doesn't work
either, but it can be hard. Yeah.
The mind, well, in my experience, I'm going to speak from my experience. Yeah. My mind has never figured it out.
I don't think mine really has either.
It doesn't figure it out. Now, the only time that it figures it out, or maybe something, right, the greater intelligence, the message can come through is when I'm not thinking.
Yeah.
Right. That's when like the magic and the real messages and the things that really can move the needle are when we can like be receptive to the natural intelligence that's all around us. But if we're constantly in our mind thinking, it's like we're kind of staying in a cage.
Yeah, it can be for sure, especially when, like you're trying to make a decision and the thoughts will just kind of do their same groove round and round. Yes.
It's like the same old boring stories. I feel like sometimes my grandmother had Alzheimer's and it was very, very sad. It was very challenging. And I remember she would tell the same stories over and over again. And that's how I feel my mind is.
Yeah.
Right? Like you're like, that story is so not cool anymore. I don't even like that story. Like and I think that what's so beautiful is doing the work that you're talking about, really helping people move, is it brings space in the thinking mind and new neurological pathways and new ways of showing up to the world, because we're not robots.
Yeah, that's right. We are not robots. Yeah, it's so interesting you say that. We have all this language about neurocircuitry and the mechanistics, which helpful metaphor, but we can fall into the trap of thinking that we are robots.
It does. It feels robotic, even the way we move. And that's why I love that you work with, literally moving energy through movement, maybe in ways that we're not always used to moving, because we do kind of, walk a certain way. Like, how many people dance without like nobody's watching?
Yeah.
Right. That's my goal. Those grandmothers, they see they're like out on the dance floor dancing crazy. I'm like, that's going to be me. That is me.
That's so wonderful. I'm such a huge fan of dance as a practice. Freestyle dance, just let the movement happen. It's a powerful practice.
It's the most therapeutic thing that you can, that really, I feel it too. I always feel so joyful and just like free.
Yeah.
I love that. Oh, Kristin, this was so much fun. There's so many beautiful elements to our conversation. I really feel there's so many beautiful golden nuggets, and I'm really excited to check out your movement meditation. Right? It's a movement. Is it a video or an audio?
Yeah, it's a video.
Perfect. Okay, good. All right. So all of you out there who might feel a little stuck, you're not alone. We're in this together. So we have a beautiful video that Kristin put together for us that we can utilize to move us through these moments. And I'm going to make sure Kristin's information is in the show notes too, so that if you feel called, she has such beautiful energy, such a beautiful vibration, Kristin. Thank you. And I'm so glad you got to bring your gift to Hippie Moms. And if there is any, they can reach out to you. I'll put your website and they can just learn more about you.
Yeah, great. Yeah, find me on my website. I have a newsletter, I have a blog, I have offerings. So I'd love to hear from you all. And thank you so much, Becky, for this podcast, and also, for this interview, but also for the podcast. I love what you're doing. I think that, I know not only moms probably listen to this, but I want to say to moms, I just think that y'all are doing the most important work in the world, and
Truly.
I really admire it.
Thank
Yeah.
you so much. We receive you, Kristen. We receive that. And it really is the most important job in the world. And
Yes.
that's why we're banding together and we're doing it together and we're walking each other home. That's what we're doing here. All right, everyone. We'll catch you on the next Hippie Moms podcast. Bye.